development and contribution to the theme of internationalization of the philosophy program of the Faculty of Social Sciences, Arts, and Humanities from the ethos-CBIT attached to the Cyberculture and Territory Research Group of the UNAD. We present a space in which we invite professors of various nationalities to participate in this space so that they share with us part of the development of their research.
From this space, Ethos Without Borders, we send you a cordial greeting and invite you to listen to our topics. Multiculturalism and Feminism, an approach from Indian culture. And to develop topic, today we have invited Dr. Tamanna Khosla. Dr. Khosla has been a researcher at Jawaharlal Nehru University in New Delhi. She was a political assistant at the Japanese embassy, advising diplomats on matters related to Indian politics. She is a consultant at Women in Security, Conflict Management, and Peace on issue of gender, peace, and conflict. He has been a professor and researcher at the University of Delhi and Saint Mother Teresa University. She is the author of 5 books and more than 30 academic articles. She is at the advisory board at Bureau of Media, Data, and Ideology. BMDI is New York, London, Taipei, based think tank which look at fake news. Likewise, she is a distinguished scholar at the Academy International of Ethics. Very well, Doctor. First of all, welcome and Kurt, thank you for your participation in this transmission. Are you ready?
Yes, Professor.
Very good. We start. Taking into account the cultural particularities of India and from the idea that you squeeze from the philosopher Ayn Rand, to one extent, can feminism be reconciled with individualism, considering that the search for gender equality and the empowerment of women is a collective struggle, while the autonomy and the individual freedom of each person?
Yes, lovely question, sir. And I would like to say that, individualism and feminism work really well together. And the school I come from, I mean, I believe a lot in the fact that, personal autonomy for women is a must. And that is what Martha Nussbaum has also said in her work. And the problem which women face, for example, in the 18th century American history, if you look at, the work of Elizabeth Stanton, or, you look at the work of Susan Anthony, they have looked at, how single women have been discredited in a big way. Women after marriage, for example, face a lot of discrimination. It's not just, I mean, if I was to give you example of India, family is extremely important. And women are given that position, where they are tutored into a certain kind of sexist behaviors, where women, for example, while I hope I'm able to make myself understand you, that they are told not to have sex, for example, in before marriage, and after marriage she's open to have one. So I mean, as far as anti-sex feminists are concerned, the ones who are like Anti-Pond, Andrea Dworkin, Catherine McKinnon, they believe that this is what is a huge problem in current society, and it's not just India, for example, it's West as well. So women, for example, they are tutored into a certain structure of patriarchy, where they have to live a life which is of the fathers, and many so that's also the problem of the gay movement, for example, the LGBTQ movement. LGBTQ movement says the same problem is with them. They are not recognized for their own choices which they make. So personal autonomy is something which is extremely a must thing. And Ayn Rand, for example, would speak about the fact that individual is is the minority which is most neglected, and women as an individual after marriage, for example, within the family. And in my book, I'm writing this particular aspect of India as well as world. They are not given sufficient space to grow, for example. They are they have to go through a certain biological process, and that is what is most important. But men, for example, they thrive after marriage, because the work is given to sexual labor, for example, is performed by women. Christine Delphi, Marxist feminist, would say that. And so she labors for him, in the family, etc. And that's a huge problem for women. And as far as workplace is concerned, glass ceiling is a major problem. I mean, it's worldwide. They're not paid equal work for equal wages. And they're also they are for example, professors are mostly men, and women are mostly teachers in schools. Men are mostly doctors, women are mostly nurses, for example. This is also true of US. Iris Marion Young's work is a seminal work which speaks about this particular fact. She's a Marxist postmodern feminist, and she has spoken a lot about that. So yeah.
From your perspective, Dr. Khosla, how can the practices of Parda and the use of the burqa in Muslim culture, where the protection of women and the preservation of the family unit are emphasized, we reconcile with the principles of equality and uniformity in the public sphere promoted by Western democracies, where are neutral secularism and the acceptance of cultural diversity are so, especially if we consider the concept of family honor, property, and prestige associated with these practices.
Yes, Professor. I mean, it's a huge problem. I mean, if you look at the whole issue of Parda, it is, I mean, I like to quote Okin on this, and she says that veiling is a major problem for women. As a liberal feminist, she has this view about Parda, for example, the veil, it's a problem. I mean, for example, in India, lately we had a major debate about, veiling, because, the state was saying that, students would not go to school wearing veil, while the women there were saying that, we have to go in veil. Now, if you look at countries that which have forced veiling, are saying that, we do not want veil. Afghanistan, Iran. You look at the war which was taking place, on with Iran in Iran over, and it's a majorly theocratic state. And how women, one of the women was killed for this particular aspect. So I guess democracies are more open for this. But I mean, if you look at the whole issue of France, France is a major secular country where the whole issue of uh, what they speak about the fact is that veiling, no woman is going to wear veil, or any religious symbol is not going to be entertained. So what is happening is that they are not allowing their secularism, and Indian secularism is totally different. Their secularism says church and state are different, separate from each other. But Indian secularism is where we respect all religions, and we grant personal laws to our people. So women have the right to choose. I mean, I guess these women feel safe. Many people who support the many feminists who are pro whaling are saying that this protects women's being. They feel safe, and they don't feel being like gazed over. But then there are other feminists who are saying that this is extremely exploitative, because there are young women who want to explore in life. They don't want to be told by a culture what to wear and what not to wear. They can wear anything they want, and so that is the whole thing. And I believe personally, I as an individualist and liberal feminist, I believe that this is what is required. Women need to have their choice, and if they want to wear a veil, it's okay. But if they don't want to wear a veil, no terrorist group or anybody should be able to compel them to do that. So yeah.
Considering the experience of Europe in its Enlightenment project, separating the religious and the political, how do you think deliberative democracy can be achieved that resolves the existing tension between the principles of secularism and multiculturalism, perhaps taking into account the perspective of contemporary philosophers such as Derrida and Habermas?
Habermas, for example, in the latest, in the last work which Derrida worked a lot with Habermas, said that uh, enlightenment project has been incompletely worked in Europe, and that is why the rise of right in Europe. you know and enlightenment has been granted a very low status in many of these countries, and that is what is required. So a new project of enlightenment is must. And what both of them agreed on is the need for deliberative democracy amongst religions. And what the requirement is that cultures talk across differences. And I guess religion should be at a smaller level than the citizenry. Citizenry has the right to pursue their own path. For example, in America right now, there are more atheists than anywhere else. So I guess that is a must. For example, no religion should be able to tell me that I should not be an atheist. It's my own wish. I want to be an atheist. I want to be an atheist. I don't want to follow you. Or if I, for example, if I'm a Muslim, they're like and if they want to become part of some other culture, they should be allowed to. There should be no fatwa against them. So that kind of thing is there. So I mean, I believe personally that and the whole course of enlightenment is still working. And I guess developing world is also looking at them for some kind of um, guidance, I guess. And and India has a constitution which has followed the whole world for a forming of constitution in 1947. And so we have, for example, in article 14 to 19, we have right to equality granted, while article 25 to 30, we grant right to culture. So both these things have been granted. But the problem in India is that, again, these places, religion is a major issue. So people feel cheated sometimes. There's a huge culture in India, for example, of gurudom. There are a lot of priests and gurus preaching. uh, you know but problem is, uh, they are very, very, very patriarchal. They have hardly read anything about feminism, and they have their opinions formed on what feminism is. And so I guess that is a whole problem, and new kind of people are coming up with their views on protection of patriarchy as it is. And I feel extremely this is problematic. And so because India has not brought enlightenment from within, and that is what is needed right now. We need to bring about enlightenment which comes from within the culture, and that enlightenment should match with political philosophies of the world. And so the best system should be able to be formed for women and men. I mean, I'm not excluding in my feminism men, for example. I'm equally considerate about men and their psychology. And so I mean, so I'm like, I would say that they should also be equally partners in things like sadomasochism, BDMS, these things. I guess these things, truly we need a system where world sees that you have um, a system where religions, it should be a project. I'm working on that work, but I need people, for example, from different religions coming together and forming a spiritual system. Plus we are also looking at the political philosophies like deconstruction, liberalism, Marxism, etc. And so that a system where citizens feel comfortable within their own countries or across transnational systems are formed. So this is what is lacking right now in the world, and that's why there's no peace. And we need spiritualism as direction for the world to understand. We've had people like Nelson Mandela, we had people like Mahatma Gandhi, we have people who have done it in the past, Mother Teresa, for example. So many of them who have taught religion and as a secular way of looking at things. So I guess, if a religion has something wrong with it, it should compare itself with other religions and see that this is what is lacking in our religion, and we should broaden it. So for example, Islam is, there is a lot of Islamophobia, for example. But the fact is that uh, uh, Islam also has schools which talk about the fact that you should, they have four schools, for example, of religion, and they talk about the fact that this religion should be compared across these schools, and the best from whichever school is, it should be followed by the country. So I guess, and that should be there. And ijtihad, for example, reinterpretation of Quran is a must of the time, and any religious books requires reinterpretation according to the civilization and the time and what the need of the time is. Yes.
Okay. How can an interfaith dialogue that promote the fight against radicalization and enclave formation be effectively bearing in mind that the prevalent secularization in many European society has affected the meaning of interfaith dialogue? And what role does the model of deliberative democracy play in resolving conflict between individual rights and culture practices in a context of social diversity and liberal democracy?
Yeah. So yes, West is facing the tensions right now, and that's also because of the unfinished Enlightenment project. And I mean, this they should realize that this is not just harming them, but it is also harming the religions which face the hate, and the ones which are wanting that we should also develop. I mean, religions which do not promote individualism. I guess, I guess there should be a lot of interfaith dialogue, and in India we do follow that. We have been part of many of these organizations where interfaith dialogues are there, and because India has been living with diversity for centuries, so India finds it easier to talk across differences within the religion. Right now we are talking about a new. Right now we have a talk in India about uniform civil code. And many of these many of people are supporting it right now. The present government is supporting it. Many feminists are supporting it, and but stakeholders have to be taken into care. For example, Muslims and Christians are the ones, communities in India are the ones who are most suspicious about UCC, and that too coming through a rightist government like BJP. But right now I think the time is right, and we should, because women have suffered the most in UCC, and also not just women, but also the liberal voices within the societies, have been crushed. Their voices have been muzzled, so they have not been allowed to speak. So I guess, if we have a uniform civil code which talks about, laws across India to be same for all religions, it will protect women more. So yeah.
Considering that crimes against humanity have been committed in the name of religion, and women have been manipulated and controlled throughout history, how can the independence and women be guaranteed in the religious context? How can individualism and religion coexist and support each other to promote women right and their freedom to make decisions about their own bodies in civilized society?
I mean, if you look at the whole thing about the whole question about abortion, the debate about abortion which is taking place in US right now, it's so shocking that women do not have right over their bodies. And they Republicans, for example, what when they come to power, they make those drugs expensive, and abortion expensive, and women do not have right over their bodies. So this is extremely problematic. I mean, if you look at any media channel in India, for example, they'll hardly ever show an abortion being done on women. It would be a very natural process. So I guess, that is a must, where women bodies are protected, and women, they should have a choice, for example, to be able to see that they are, for example, having, if they don't want to marry, for example, or they don't want to pursue a certain profession, or they want to stay alone, without a family, and they don't want a child, for example. These things are shocking for many people in India. Even now, even the most educated people do not understand these concepts, that the new generation needs this kind of independence. But this is not happening right now, and I mean, the world needs to change and look at what they have done to their own women, the sisters and the daughters. The system doesn't change. In India, for example, after marriage, women suffer a lot. I mean, they don't have an autonomy to pursue their own careers. They have to take care of the husband, they have to take care of the father-in-law, mother-in-law. They hardly can take care of their own other the maternal family. So these kind of things that they have to do. I mean, this is happening in our generation. So how does that happen? So this is a very shocking thing for me when I'm writing a book on feminist manifesto. And it looks at a lot of work in India, and how India, women suffer a lot. But it's not just India, for example, women are suffering worldwide. Women are suffering. So men hardly take care of children, for example. The state might have come up with paternal, job, holidays, for example, for them, men, the husbands, but hardly they take care of children. So I guess, even nothing has changed for a 16-year-old also. She faces the same harassment, which the other older generation had faced at workplace. They hardly are at high positions. So yeah.
Another perspective from the same Dr. Khosla, the problem of religion that treat women as second-class citizens and deny them their autonomy. What step can we take to challenge and change religious teaching that encourage sexual psychological control women in the name of tradition and scripture? How can individualism offer an alternative to empowerment, promote their freedom of choice instead of being subject to the restriction imposed by religion institution?
I guess the buzzword which I would say for that the whole d- thing between individualism and feminism is the whole issue about personal autonomy. My voice. I am raising my voice. You be a Muslim woman, you be a Christian woman. We need to talk across differences. Women ourselves have to talk about it. I'm talking about transnational feminism, a movement where transnational women, for example, at the lowest class, for example, the Dalits in India, the scheduled caste and the scheduled tribes, for example, they need to learn from the other classes, which are like at the upper rung of the society, the knowledge they have gained through studying, you know feminism, for example, and they should, so across differences, for example, in Africa, we need to help our sisters. We have to come together. We have to learn from their cultures. What are they doing? For example, i had a I had a personal experience. I had a domestic help. She helped our work at our place, and she said that she used to beat her husband up. So, but that's not possible in a middle class family or a rich class family in India. A woman taking out a shoe and hitting at her husband, that's just not possible. And on the other hand, raising hands on the woman is a common thing amongst men. So I guess personal autonomy, whatever is the choice women have, and learning from each other's experience, men, like-minded men coming together, understanding women, what is the need of the time, what is the need of the civilization, how should we remove clash of civilizations and bring about proper culture where women are respected and they are not ill-treated the way they are till now. It's like, I guess, if you look at 18th and 19th century revolution, the feminism when it was just evolving, you'll be shocked to read the literature. It's so independent. Susan Anthony was totally against one of her feminist females when she got married. Will you see that dialogue is nowhere held in India right now? I don't see anybody speaking like that. Okay, we have LGBTQ community people, but people who are talking about single women are hardly there. So I guess we need to understand that particular aspect.
Of course, Dr. Khosla, a very complex situation. What are the consequences of perpetuating the stereotype of a woman as a housewife and limiting her option and aspiration beyond the traditional role? How can we liberate women to become their true selves and fully contribute their intelligence and skill to the progress and society?
I guess education is the only tool which is required as a must uh, tool, which is used for women to empower themselves. You might be a scientist, but probably you haven't read anything about feminism. So I guess the history of feminism is a must for people to understand. And not just feminism, but also political systems, worldwide, and political theories are must, because they are empowering. They are way of lives. The way religion is a way of life, so is liberalism a way of life, so is Marxism a way of life. So these things, when people understand, an architect doesn't know what really it is. A psychiatrist probably might know, but not to a great extent. So I guess to understand these philosophies and choosing amongst them and getting the best, to churn out the best juice out of them for the world, is the time. Not just one philosophy can answer. I guess we have certain questions, and these questions should be given to each philosophies to answer, and the best answer given should be, the aggrieved parties should understand which philosophy is giving you the best rescue, from a world which is binding you in chains, So you need a system where you are not binded by chains of family, for example, or you need to be able to fly free. There should not be people or the society telling you what to do and what not to do. It's your choice, and that is going to help you not just in this world but also in that world, if that is what you agree upon.
Okay, and to finish, please let's talk about caste social class in India and the fact that India is said to be the most dangerous place in the world to be born women.
Yeah, so I guess the caste system in India is still prevalent, but many of my intellectual friends have worked a lot on this particular aspect, and they have written a lot on the system of caste, for example, and how for example, Dalits, Dalit classes, for example, they have a more superior culture than the upper classes. Women are treated much better in lower caste than in the upper caste. As I was also giving you the example of my domestic help. So I mean, they have their own gods, for example, and they have their own philosophies, and so we need transnational feminism where we have a talk across differences, and we understand each other and we are not suspicious of each other. So yeah, and so yeah, I guess it is a very dangerous place to be born, but it depends in which family you're born. That's very important. If they have provided you with autonomy and they have provided you with education, the state is working towards it. I can see that happening, but yet it is a lot of work needs to be done, because men are in power, women are not in power. I mean, I have seen people, the minute they get married, you know their whole philosophies change. So hypocrisy needs to change amongst feminist movement. So feminist movement, hypocrisy has to be sidelined, and women need to come together, understand each other. Philosophies can differ, but unity needs to exist between women and men and the third gender, and a world where people can live in peace, they can breathe in peace. you know I guess that is what is needed right now, and my personal work would be on, now, which I will be working on, is on different religions, for example. And I mean, I had a talk lately on Hinduism and individualism, and how the philosophies of Upanishads and Vedas are much more helpful to understand women, as Hinduism also talks in the Hinduism is a very diverse religion. It's not just one way, you look at it. It's got many schools. So the school which I refer to is about the Upanishads, and the Vedas. And what they say is that, individual is comes alone and goes alone. So individual is alone, and the more they learn to live alone, is going to be better. So I guess communities are important, but more than that, and satisfaction within the individual about themselves, about the world around them, is a must. And I guess in Hinduism we can really help in this particular strand of feminism. It can really help feminist movement to move forward. But there are schools which are extremely derogatory and which are popularly used, so they should not be encouraged. And I guess better education should be given of Upanishads to people in India, if that's what they want. And so yeah.
Winning the freedom of women to fully contribute to the progress of society in a country like India, means challenging gender stereotypes, promoting equal opportunities and rights, and empowering women through education, leadership, and financial support. It is a collective effort that requires the commitment of the entire society to achieve through gender equality and women liberation. Once again, Dr. Tamanna, thank you for accepting our invitation. Thank you so much.